ex-husband's entitled new wife thinks I should pay back the college tuition he paid for me because I owe them, so I put her in her place. So for some background, my ex-husband and I ended things over 20 years ago. When our son was 2, he stepped out. At the time, I was a stay-at-home mom and going to nursing school full-time. He was paying for my schooling. After he left, I asked him if he would keep paying for my school so I could finish with no debt. He agreed, saying it was the least he could do. A few months after that, he got his affair partner pregnant. When she got pregnant, she demanded he stop paying for my schooling. It was 1/5 of their income, and she said that money needed to go towards their new baby. He refused and kept paying for the remaining year and a half I had left. Over the years, I continued my education, and now I'm a nurse practitioner. I do well for myself, and I never remarried. On to the problem. My son called me and told me he and his wife are expecting. I was ecstatic. I asked if I could come over sometime during the weekend by and give them some things, his favorite stuffy as a child, a check, and some other small sentimental things. He said yes, so I went over earlier today. I came by and gave him everything, including a check for a few $1,000s. My son and his wife thanked me and told me the money would be very helpful. My ex-husband and his wife came over and a little while later and saw the check on the counter. My ex's wife asked about it, and I said, oh, well, I wanted to help out where I could. Everything's so expensive nowadays. I was really just trying to be polite, but I don't think this is any of her business. This woman had the audacity to say, well, maybe since you have all this money now, you can finally pay us back all that money you took when you went to college. I was dumbfounded. My ex has literally never brought up me paying him back. He's always said it was the least he could do for both me and our son. My ex has done very well for himself in his career. I didn't see how or why they'd need the money, so I asked them, do you guys need the money or something? And my ex said no, and she said, of course not. It's about principle. I told her I will absolutely not be paying them back for college tuition from over 20 years ago, especially when she ended up in our marital home while I was living in a small apartment barely making ends meet for years after I initially finished school. Yes, it was our marital home. We bought it after getting married. I didn't fight so hard for it in the divorce for a few reasons, mostly that she was borderline harassing me about how they needed the house for their growing family. He bought me out of the house. I've never been bitter or mean. I've always been civil since our kids are siblings, but my blood was boiling. I left shortly after that. According to my son, this has been a point of contention in their marriage. She's brought it up a few times over the years in front of him, and she's insisting to him that he needs to convince me to finally pay back what they're owed. Update. Another thing, when he was paying for my schooling, we were still legally married. The divorce wasn't finalized until after I graduated. There was no child support until after I graduated. There was never any alimony. On to the update. I got off work yesterday to find a few missed calls from my son. When I called him back, he told me that his stepmom had now asked for the money from the check since it was almost the same amount they spent on my college. She said it was obvious I'd never pay my debts, and that I would just give him my son more money anyways. I'm stunned. I'm pissed. I don't know what has possessed her to think to ask my son for money intended for his family. I tell my son to ignore her and I'll handle it. Next, I call my ex. It goes straight to voicemail. I try again a few minutes later, and it's the same thing. So I reluctantly called my ex's wife, and she answered immediately. I tell her the three of us need to meet first thing in the morning to discuss the debt. This morning we met at a coffee shop near my ex's work. As soon as they sat down, I said, so ex's wife wants to tell me why you think it's appropriate to ask my son for money? My ex looked at her and said, you asked for money? She starts about how she was only asking for the money they're owed, and she didn't ask for more than was on the check. Then she says, for years we struggled due to paying for your school. For years we couldn't afford a new car, a new house, or a nanny. My kids had to share a room. She goes on about her struggles. I started to tune her out because I kept thinking there was no way she was this deluded. It may have been inappropriate, but I laughed. I literally took out thousands in credit card debt to keep me and my son afloat while my husband was shacking up with her and paying her bills. My ex looked at her and said, what the hell, Sarah? I added, it's laughable you think you're owed anything from while you were a mistress. We were married when he paid for my schooling. It's quite literally none of your business how he chose to send money. You had zero entitlement to his money until you said, I do. And from what I recall, that wasn't until years after the divorce was even finalized. Do not contact me or my son about this money again. You will never see a dime from me. She rolls her eyes and gets up to leave. After she's gone, my ex asks why I didn't just call him and tell him about what was going on. Said he would have handled it, and that it didn't have to go this far. I say I did call him, twice actually, and this is how we figured out she blocked my number from his phone. So those of you who said she's just very insecure, you were absolutely correct. I tell him that she involved his sister, cousin, and sister-in-law, and that I got several calls and texts from them telling me I should finally pay back my debt. I tell him that she involved the family, and then asked our son for money intended for his baby. She's crossed too many lines. He apologizes and says he'll make sure she doesn't bother me about it again. We both leave after that. My son said he blocked her number and doesn't want her at his house until she apologizes. That's pretty much it for now.